Hello and welcome back to the RevOpsCharlie channel, where I am really excited to kick off a new mini-series called Globetrotters, in which we're going to spend 30 minutes talking about individual countries and regions around the world. And the reason for doing this is that as a technology company, wherever you're based, whether that's the US, whether it's somewhere in Europe or in Asia Pacific, expanding your total addressable market by moving into new regions is a key way of scaling up the business. But it can be difficult as a founder or as a revenue leader to figure out where do we go and what are some of the cultural and business nuances of each of those countries. And that's what I hope to explore through this mini-series. And so for this first one, I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome Jens Cavallo, who is going to be sharing some of his experience around the German market and maybe even the DACH market as well. So Jens, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Charlie. Great to be on the show.
Fantastic. So maybe just a little bit of background in terms of yourself and Saas Intelligence, which is the business that you're setting up. Maybe get a little bit of background so that people can understand where you are and the kind of work that you do.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So work in tech sales for 10 years now, moved into tech sales with a company called AdX Tracking. We did mobile attribution, a mighty team of 10 people. We then got acquired by a French company called Criteo in the mobile advertising space. During that acquisition, I moved to London, where I was still covering the DACH, the German, Swiss, Austrian market from London. I then joined a company called Beekeeper, opening up their office in Germany. It is a Swiss company, sort of the Slack for frontline workers. That was back in 2017. Built up the team, scaled it to 12 people in the Berlin office. And then in 2021, I joined a company called Tufin in the cybersecurity space. And I also founded my own or co-founded my own venture, which is Saas Intelligence, where we help sellers understand the buying process of large organizations by collecting input via reviews from sellers who have sold into those organizations in the past. So very similar to a G2 for sellers, if you wish.
Brilliant. Well, we'll look forward to touching on that maybe towards the end of this session. So let's dive in. So I'm almost going to take on the role of a tech founder. Maybe I'm from the States, maybe I'm from somewhere around the world, and I'm thinking about opening up in the German market. And someone mentioned to me the phrase DACH. What's that?
Yeah, I'm gonna answer that with another abbreviation. So DACH is GSE. It is German-speaking Europe, which covers Germany, Austria, and Switzerland.
Okay. So the CH is Switzerland.
A is Austria, and D is DACH, or D is Germany.
Okay, perfect. And do a lot of companies treat that as a specific region? Is it because of the language, or are there other reasons that they're sort of bundled together?
Yeah, it certainly is. It always depends on the stage where you are, but especially when you, as a founder or as the VP of sales based out of the US, who then wants to move to Central Europe or Germany or DACH, then you definitely treat that as one as one country, really, in terms of marketing, in terms of collateral, in terms of probably folks you get a place here, in terms of office. So before setting up a second office in Austria or Switzerland, I think you would open up a lot of other offices.
Yeah, and Germany is by far the biggest in terms of population out of those three, isn't it? It's a much larger, obviously, land mass, but in terms of the number of people there.
Absolutely, yeah. I think, I'm not sure about the population. So we have between 80 and 85 million people living in Germany, and then I think we have just above 10 million in Austria and less than that in Switzerland.
But it's definitely, the German market is definitely the largest. And so do you see typically that when a company is opening up in the region, then they're going to base themselves initially out of Germany?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so Germany is, for the reasons you just mentioned, the logical choice. And, there's a few other things, for example, within this GSE, within DACH, what is the biggest city? It is also in Germany. It is typically Berlin or Munich, which is where you probably kind of open up the office, which obviously has effects not only on the kind of companies you want to reach out to or you're trying to sell to, but also the talent pool. Obviously, in those cities, you have the largest number of universities. You also got like international folks who you might want to hire for maybe non-GTM roles, etc. So yes, I personally don't know any company who has opened up or who has entered the DACH market and not started with Germany.
And I've worked for companies before, and Munich has twice been the place where we've opened up. And yet I read a lot about Berlin having a very vibrant tech scene. So do you see where do people typically open up, and is that changing over time?
Yeah. So I mean, it's just Munich is Germany, but it's very close to Switzerland and very close to Austria, right? You can get there in no time, which obviously then makes sense. And Berlin, you probably have to fly to Austria, you probably have to fly to Switzerland, and it takes a lot more time. So in that sense, if you really say, hey, I want to enter DACH specifically, then Munich is very central to DACH. But then it really depends on your ICP. It depends on which customers, which companies you're trying to sell to, who you're trying to serve. So, for example, if your ICPs are banks, then you probably rather open up an office somewhere in or around Frankfurt. If you're selling to manufacturing, metal processing companies, you go somewhere southwest. Or if you go to, I don't know, if you want to sell to automotive companies, you probably want to be in the south. So it really depends on your focus.
On the customers that you're selling into. And I mean, that's a good link into thinking about the customers. So we often think, well, I say me as a Brit, you often think of strong engineering and manufacturing culture in Germany. Is that fair? Are there other industries that are picking up a lot from that?
I mean, if you look at the TAM, then it's probably those industries really, and which are traditionally the backbone of the German economy or the DACH economy, really. So automotive, manufacturing, etc. They're all in the process, right in the middle of their transformation. So a lot of opportunity for companies who help with that, who help with digital transformation. And when you're talking about like seats, licenses, etc., those companies are also the ones who have the largest employee force as well.
Yeah.
There's obviously the growing tech scene in Berlin, and there's a lot of other companies who are really interesting, a lot of hidden champions, etc. But in order to win your big German flagship customers, you probably want to look into those industries really.
And you mentioned at the start that you'd opened up for a company in the German market. Whereabouts were you based? And I mean, obviously that was where you live, but were there any lessons learned about where the company opened up?
Yeah, so when they approached me, they wanted to have an office in Frankfurt just because it's most central and you can get everywhere easily. But at the end of the day, kind of the pragmatic approach is, okay, who do you want to hire? And that person then decides, right? That's really what it is. And in terms of lessons, the one lesson that I learned is hiring in Berlin is rather easy, but hiring sales folks, German-speaking sales force in Berlin, it's actually not that easy. And you find a lot of international folks there. You find a lot of tech-savvy people. But really, German account executives, German SDRs is easier to find in other, let's say, smaller cities like, let's say, Cologne, maybe Frankfurt, Hamburg, etc. just because it's Berlin that attracts just so much talent, so much international talent. And then a lot of companies, they enter the German market, they open up an office in Germany, and they're all trying to find those talents, and the talent pool of German sellers is not necessarily larger than in smaller cities, really.
Yeah. So you've got to try and get that balance between the customers that you're trying to sell into and where they are, and then the talent, and try and find this perfect mix.
Absolutely. But then on the other side, we hired fantastic marketing folks, sales technology, so RevOps actually as well. But they were international, right? So they were coming from all over the place, or they came from all over the place. They were living in Berlin already, but that pool was incredible. So that was really good.
Yeah. So if I'm this tech founder, I'm going to open up in Germany, and I've picked the town or the city where I want to open up. Do you find people mainly opening up with local resources, local team members, or are they flying people in from the US, or to be that launch team?
Yeah, so the German bureaucracy, we have a reputation, and that's not for no reason. So you need a job in order to get a flat. You need a flat in order to get a job. So obviously, if you as a company are in the position to provide both, and many companies are, that's perfect. But if you're a smaller startup, so back in the days with Beekeeper, we certainly said, okay, well, and that's for foreigners, obviously, right? So if you were a German who's currently living, let's say, in the UK, and then wants to go back, well, he can enter and he can stay, or she can enter and stay for longer, for as long as they want. But if you're a foreigner and come in, then you need a job or a flat in order to get the other part of the puzzle, really. And that's essentially why we have a lot of companies who, when they have an office, let's say in London, before entering physically the German market, meaning opening up an office, they would say, okay, we have a lot of German-speaking talent in London, and we try to get them here, right? And then get them through onboarding, and have them ramped and have them ready, have them with us for a year or two, and then offering them, hey, do you want to, when you move back? And in that case, we would then provide, obviously, a job, and then you can easily find a flat.
That is such a good strategy. You got to think in advance. Maybe it's a year or 2 years in advance, but if you're growing the culture of your organization and obviously the expertise around what you're doing, and then to give someone the opportunity to then travel back home, which is what they were planning to do anyway, perfect way of seeding that new territory.
Absolutely, and probably even better than working. Well, the other option, obviously, to enter this market or any other market is via partners, right? To just test the water. But if you have someone on the payroll, I think it's probably a better sign, a bigger sign, a stronger sign to your commitment to the market, which is something your customers would appreciate, I'm sure.
I mean, thinking about partners there, are there particular ones that you've worked with in the past, or even types of partners, if not a specific one, that have helped to launch tech?
Partners that have helped to launch tech, yeah. I mean, cybersecurity, where I'm working right now, so we work only with partners. So we're selling exclusively via partners, and that has helped us tremendously. So there are, and then they're all the best performing partners are niche partners. They're still fairly big. We're talking about 5,000 employees in Germany only, but they're still niche. They're focusing on cybersecurity. And that's going extremely well, because in a lot of German companies, as in other companies, you need to go through the registration process, vendor registration, and all of that. And one thing, one reason why we built Saas Intelligence, you need to understand what it takes to sell into this account. You need to have done it a few times in order to shorten the sales cycle. And that's why partners are super helpful here in Germany. The big resellers, the Deloittes, the PwCs of the world, the KPMGs, I haven't seen them succeed here necessarily.
Mm.
But that's purely based on my own experience.
Mm. Mm.
But yeah, if you were asking me about a few names that we worked with or that I have worked with successfully, that would probably be companies like Computer Center, like Controlware, like a Bechtle. Those are companies who are focusing on IT, lots of them focusing specifically on cybersecurity. They were there for 20 years already. And they're just very close to the customers that they have.
Yeah. And I think with those types of companies, if you as the vendor are creating the demand, then they're very good at soaking that demand up and servicing it locally in local language and providing you some of that local support if you're not a local company.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Think about language. What's your experience in terms of, I guess, different areas or regions of Germany and comfortableness with English or non-German language?
Oh, I think that's super hard. I think you can't break that down into like the regions. It's really kind of, it's the nature of the business. So obviously, tech companies have no issue selling from English speaking folks. That's easy. Or do business with English speaking folks. When it comes to traditional industries like manufacturing, like automotive, it can get difficult. But at the end of the day, all those companies, I'd say they have enough pressure these days that they can't pick and choose. So essentially, it also comes down to really the value that you're creating. And if you have enough value, if your product has enough value, then you can afford not selling in German, in German language.
Yeah, I think for so many countries, not just Germany, it's about respect and understanding the customer's situation. If you turn up with English speakers, with English language contracts, with an English website, then what does that demonstrate in terms of your commitment to the market? It says something that you haven't invested in the local people and translating things correctly.
And nobody will give you that feedback, right? Nobody will tell you, I'm not going to buy from you because all the collateral and everything and all the communications is in English. They would never say that. So you can't really kind of, it's hard to internally justify that, hey, we need to make an effort. We need to translate all our collateral. We need to have local marketing, etc., which makes it difficult.
Thinking a bit about actual sort of technology and cloud and SaaS, my first experience of working in the German market was back in the early 2000s, and we were one of the first cloud email security companies. So emails flying around the internet, we'd scan it in the internet and then deliver it locally. And I remember in the German market, there was a lot of desire to have local data centers that were scanning this email in the German market, even though the concept of the email might have come from America or it might have come from anywhere, but this need to have local data centers. How have you seen that has evolved with the cloud platforms that you've been selling and working with?
Not a lot. No, really. I mean, one of the reasons I joined Beekeeper is because they told me we're going to open or to launch AWS in Frankfurt. And if you don't do that, you're basically cutting your TAM by 80%, I would say.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what you just described. So you're not even getting into the situation where you're having a conversation about how much does it actually make sense, or why is that a requirement? It is a policy, it is a requirement, it's a KO criteria, and you just have to do it if you want to do business, or you don't want to cut your TAM here. I would even say, because it's such a strong requirement, if you have, let's say, XYZ resources in R&D, and you can choose between opening up a data center or launching a data center, or kind of develop a few features, think about that. Like, seriously, it's depending on your competition. So if your biggest competitor can solve, I don't know, 50% more use cases than you can, but you have your data is hosted in Germany, think you stand a better chance here in Germany. So it is super important, and not having that just puts you in a really difficult situation.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, then that's the other thing. If you don't have that, then make sure you address this immediately with your prospect, because otherwise you could spend so much time just, going through this, 18, 24-month sales cycle, only to then find out, oh, actually we can't work together. We can't do business together because the data needs to be hosted in Germany because policy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's super important point that you mentioned.
Yeah, I definitely, and maybe it's more with the German market, but with so many countries, you're either in or you're out. But to be half in, well, let's just see what happens. Customers rightly look at you and go, you could be gone tomorrow. So you're either here or you're not here.
You know Lidl, the retailer?
Yeah.
So Lidl, Schwarz IT, which is the IT sister of Lidl, they're launching their own data center. I'm not sure like how far they are with that, but they're extremely serious about that. And I'm sure that at some point in a not too far distance, the distant future, they're looking for first companies who are trying to who are testing that. So that might be a nice way. And probably, I mean, if you host your data with Lidl, that's probably even more German than hosting it with AWS.
Yeah.
So yeah. That could be interesting.
Continuing to think about sort of data security and data privacy, German Workers' Council comes up a lot. So for those people that have not come across or heard of that before, are you able to give a bit of a high level of what that is?
Yeah, let me try that. So basically, Worker Council is a group of people who are representing the entire workforce in front of the employer, right? So they make sure that that the canteen menu is right. To name one of the, or to mention one of the very famous ones. But essentially, they're trying to protect you. They're also fighting for you that you get a salary pay, like a pay raise regularly, so to cover inflation and all of that. So they're really representing you. That it's very political. There is an election every 4 years, and if the Workers' Council, if you're selling tech, then it's very likely that the Workers' Council, they have a say in that. So you need to understand how that game is being played and what is important to them, because they want to be re-elected. It comes like being part of a Workers' Council. It comes with a few advantages. For example, they can't let you go. So those folks, they have an interest in being elected. So they want to look good in front of all the employees. So it's very political, and it's important to understand that, and it's important to treat them seriously, treat them as a stakeholder, treat them as someone who need and you want to work together with. So you need to make sure you are in the position that you can communicate and articulate why this is important for them as the Workers' Council, but also for the entire workforce. So that they can then again kind of resell it to their employees and can defend the decision that, yes, we said this is okay to be implemented.
It's in any sales cycle, you're looking for who's the one person that can say yes, but also who are the people that can say no, and the Workers' Council can say no. And I've been involved with projects that were either Workday, so very HR related and very focused on that, but also Google projects, which just involved obviously dealing with people's calendars and how people collaborate. And Workers' Council were 100% involved in that decision about whether to go with those products. And you have to then align with, well, when is their next meeting and when can they next approve or something. And if you haven't built that into your plan, you can have the best laid close plan in place, and then because this stakeholder has not been addressed up front.
Absolutely. And to be honest, like when you're pitching a company who has just launched Workday, it's going to be really hard for you, because they just said yes to that thing. So they need the next thing to say no to, so that they can say to their basically to their employees, say, look, they tried to implement that, we helped you, we prevented that from happening. That's a good thing. So it's super hard. In Germany there are workers councils coaches. They're trying to bring both parties together, bring them on to the same table, and then have a proper conversation. Because obviously, as you probably just heard from what I told you, it is very political, and it's less about, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? Or does it help the employee or does it not? Does it make the employee's life easier, or does it make it the employee's life harder? It is very political, and there are those workers councils coaches who can help you. Again, if you're entering Germany as a new market, understand their position and how this game is being played, but also who can bring both parties together, because those coaches, they typically come from a company where they have been in HR and they have been part of workers council, so they speak their language and they can have a different conversation with the people that you try to win for your deal and for your business.
And just a couple more things before we wrap up. Thinking about post-COVID, how have you seen that the way that customers are buying has changed? Is there still a lot of virtual, or are people going back to wanting to see people in person? How are you seeing that change?
It's a lot virtual, and the deal size doesn't even matter. I was always thinking, hey, before they sign a 6 or 7 digit deal, they will want to meet in person. That is not the case anymore. It is, I think, the majority, 90% is virtual, maybe more than that, probably more than that. And then if you do it in person, then it really makes sense to kind of really make the most out of it. I think this is like super important. Then don't go there for a meeting for an hour. But make sure you combine it with a workshop. You somehow see if you can add value, bring more than your 2-3 stakeholders to the table, make the most out of it, almost make it an event. Because this is something that we and everybody else realizes we are wasting a lot of time on meetings. But that being said, there is not the one right answer. So depends on your champion, depends on the company you're selling into, etc.
I definitely see if you can make it worthwhile in terms of, let's say, a workshop or some kind of something that couldn't be done on video, then when people are together, they really love it. It's like, oh, thanks for giving us almost the reason to get together as a team, because we don't get together that much. So I always think, if you're going to ask people to come together, you've got to think, how could we do something that could never have been done on video, somehow.
Perfect. Fully agree. Yeah.
And then, so just finally, I'm launching in the country. I want to make a big buzz. Someone told me about CeBIT being a big tech event, goes on for like 3 weeks. But are there other sort of key events in SaaS and tech that I should be thinking about as being present at?
Yeah, don't go to CeBIT. The last one was in 2018. So it's over.
Is it finished now?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's finished.
It shows my age.
Yeah, 2018. That was the first and only time I've been there. But yeah, we already knew it was shutting down. But no, there is the most traditional digital marketing event in Cologne called DMEXCO. Lots of people confuse DMEXCO, yeah.
Okay.
Lots of people confusing that and saying DMexico, but it's similar. It's not the same. And then there is its more stylish brother, which is Online Marketing Rockstars Festival in Hamburg. So that's pretty big, and I think they've even outsized DMEXCO now, which is crazy. And then another nice niche event is Bits and Pretzels in Munich. Those I would say are the 3 main ones.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's been brilliant, and thank you so much for giving us that sort of tour of the region. You mentioned at the start Saas Intelligence. So maybe just give a little overview of that, and how can viewers help you in terms of supporting Saas Intelligence?
Sure, absolutely. So we all know the power of reviews. We know G2, we know Capterra, and all the other platforms, and that essentially helps buyers or users to understand, okay, what are the advantages, disadvantages of Zoom over, let's say, Google Meet, etc. But if you're sitting on the other side of the table, if you're a seller and you're trying to sell into Walmart, McDonald's, whatever, and you haven't sold into them before, then you might end up wasting a lot of time looking for the right contact, but also understanding their processes. Who do you need to have involved if the ARR is above 100K? When do you need to work with partners? What documents do you need to sign in terms of legal, etc.? So we have this platform. We're currently having 2,000 reviews of people who have sold into those large accounts and who have left their reviews, went through a questionnaire of 20 questions, and basically help everyone out there who is also trying to get into McDonald's and Walmart, etc., to understand what is really the buying process and what do I need to prep for. So yeah, it works very similarly to the Glassdoors of the world. So in order to get full access to all the data on a company, on an account level, you need to leave your own review that is being reviewed by us and verified. And once you have that verified, you get access to the platform and you can see how deals are being done.
Fantastic. Well, I'll put the web link into the show notes so that people can find both the website there, but also your LinkedIn, and can contact you directly.
Perfect. Appreciate that.
Well, thanks, Jens, for being the first participant on Globetrotters. Certainly, I found that really insightful to learn a little bit about the market and how someone might consider opening it up. But thank you very much for joining.
Thank you.